Hello. Now we continue business understanding with ChatGPT, and I'm looking at here the dataset Brazilian rental housing as an example for business understanding using ChatGPT. Well, this dataset can be found or used to be found on Kaggle.com. It's no longer available, unfortunately, but there are some analysis. Some people already completed. You can take a look at them. Otherwise, dataset is no longer available. However, I have a copy, at least a somewhat modified version. So you can click on it. You could get the dataset in this address. So say GitHub, my GitHub account, and you could just download the dataset. What we're gonna do now, what we're gonna do is looking at some questions, some prompts using the dataset. But again, in before we do any kind of analysis, we need to know the background information, the context, and the business. So if you think about it, I'm not familiar with the country Brazil. Also, I am not familiar with real estate business, including rental housing. So I like to know more about these things, the country and the dynamics, some of the dynamics in terms of rental housing in Brazil. So it takes some preparation and understanding before you do anything with the data set. Um, so just go ahead, copy and paste the data set from GitHub, download it, and then go back to ChatGPT, switch to ChatGPT, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna try these questions. Okay, one by one. Not everything, I'm not gonna do everything, but at least a couple of more important questions. For example, what could be the most important information a data analyst need to know before analyzing a data set on Brazilian rental housing? I mean, it's a preparation question. As an analyst, what you need to know about this particular industry, this particular area. Another question I kind of wonder what could be a typical Brazilian rental housing data set look like. So in actuality, we have a data set already. However, I kind of wonder the perspective of the ChatGPT. I mean, I have just one data set. So what could be a typical data set? My data set covers everything or just a subset. So it could be a good idea to take a look at what could be the typical. So how many columns, which columns included, you're supposed to get or we expect to see in a typical data set. Another thing is inspect the data set. To inspect the data set for ChatGPT, you need to upload the data set. After uploading the data set, you can say, oh, okay, what can you do with this data set? Can you propose some questions that could be answered using the data set? So these are all we're kind of trying to learn more about the context. So let's try the first question and see the ChatGPT's answer. So just copy and go to ChatGPT, start a new chat, paste, and yeah. All right. So, well, it's kind of the ChatGPT is kind of following um, the structure, the data understanding. So in terms of data understanding, where the data comes from, like government agencies, private databases, data scraping, I kind of, it depends on the type of the data set, but like government agency could be more, reliable than private parties. I mean, or vice versa, depending on the, situation. Um, so it could be important where the data comes from. Um, what's the coverage scope? You know, is this like a country level, specific cities? Um, is there a particular time frame the data is collected? Granularity, is it like a higher level, lower level with a detail level? And there are, other information. So it's a really nice, it's a nice start, as you can see. Rent price, you see, we didn't upload the data set yet, okay? But here is, well, a lot of information, including the language differences, um, Portuguese, and so on. And then I'm thinking, okay, what else? What else can I, ask? So I say, yeah, let's take a look at the typical data set again before you upload anything. So, just paste it and run it. Okay, so looks like to me some real good example, a data dictionary, you may want to call it, or each bullet point is kind of a column. So the ChatGPT kind of grouped them into specific sections. So in terms of identification and location and property details, rental prices, price, money, additional features, okay, pet friendly, um, gated community or not, and then you know average rent and so on. So yeah, I think, yeah, we have, this is a really nice start and a lot of information here. And I see the how many columns, like 20, 30 columns here. But then when it comes to my data, the data that's available to me is like less than that. So our data is not so big, but yet this is what we have. So now it's kind of preparation. Now that I know there's more, but what I have is, yeah, less than that. But I'll try to analyze my data. So here we go, downloading the data set and uploading. Click on it. Okay, and um, paste it. Document, no downloads. Yeah, rental properties, open. All right. So yeah, go ahead, upload your data set. And as you can see, ChatGPT is automatically analyzing the data set without telling anything. I was gonna say, yeah, inspect the data set. So you don't have to say that, inspect the data, it's doing it already. Then my next question will be like, what can I do with this data set? What can be done with this data set? Propose some questions that are answerable using the data set. So let's take a look what's done. As you can see, um, the rental properties data set, like a table is provided. I can see name of the or description of each column, names and descriptions. It's not just the name, as you can see, as far as ChatGPT tries and understand it, those information is provided. So comparing to the typical real estate data set in Brazil, comparing to what I have, yeah, our data set is a subset. Okay, but it's kind of similar and capturing a lot of that information. So I'm looking at what can be, interesting things in the data set. So what is missing? For example, gated community, we don't have that. Status, we don't have that. So some things are missing in my data set, but that's fine. It's an example. I'm looking at the columns scrolling right, and I see, okay, some numbers, some text, and here is some explanations by ChatGPT. And ChatGPT is like telling me, wait a minute, there's text or dollar, prefix needs cleaning. And there's something like animal indicating pets are allowed or not. And some values are dash, which may indicate missing data. So that's a nice warning or nice comment to help me. I wish there is the ChatGPT figure out like accept, not accept. If this is a typo. So I wish ChatGPT could tell me that's a typo. It's not saying this. Usually similar things when that happens, ChatGPT will tell you, hey, there's a possibility that this is typo. This time it's not saying it. So anyway, it's no big deal. I can see that that's a typo. Um, so I'm looking at what else. I see like HOA, fees, property tax, fire insurance, everything's like starting with R dollar prefix. So that's not good. So I got to get rid of these R dollar signs because these are numerical columns. If you put R dollar, it's no longer numeric, it's text. So Brazilian reais, R dollar should be eliminated, okay? So you need some coding here, okay? Well, no problem because we have ChatGPT. What else? Um, yeah, it's like again, ChatGPT telling us this is a like categorical variable, and two variations, two categories. You may need to standardize and so on. So as far as ChatGPT understand the data, here are the comments. Now going back to what else can be asked, I think yeah, the next part could be what questions are answerable, what can be done with this data set, or like key metrics in a rental housing data set. Um, so the next stage is brainstorming. And I was thinking, okay, let's try a couple of these questions, brainstorming questions. Let's see, okay, who can benefit from analyzing a rental housing data set? What is the currency in Brazil? So yeah, it could be good to know these basics. Some things really comes to your mind. Okay, so whatever it comes to your mind as part of the brainstorming session, you can just ask that. But I think before we do anything, because there's a question about unusual questions in the brainstorming session, what unusual questions, but I think we should go back and say what usual questions can you come up with about this data set? So usual questions kind of like